Recording live from Glory Hole Studios in Chicago and beyond. This is Cognitive Dissonance. Every episode we blast anyone who gets in our way. We bring critical thinking, skepticism, and irreverence to any topic that makes the news, makes it big, or makes us mad. It's skeptical, it's political, and there is no welcome mat. Today is Thursday, March the 6th. And Cecil, do you know what I thought about doing this week?
What's that?
I was listening to one of my favorite new podcasts, the No Rogan Experience.
No Rogan Experience, solid podcast.
I do genuinely, I love that
solid
show.
podcast.
I love it.
Solid podcast.
And you guys are doing a thing where you can record your impression of the Bruce.
Are you going to do it?
I felt like it would be like
you should probably
incestuous
do it.
or
You should
cheating
totally
or something.
do it. You should totally do it.
But I'm like,
we got Andy Wilson to do it.
Well, now I've got to do it.
You got to do it.
He came out of incredulous retirement.
Yeah, he did. He dusted off his WWE belt and he walked out to the ring.
I wanted to do it, but I was like, is it overstepping?
I was actually going to ask you and the scathing guys to all do it. So I had him as extras.
I almost sent it to you this week. I was like, I've got to do it.
Got to do it.
Because
what we're referring to is when we start a segment on one specific segment on No Rogan, I used to have Bruce Buffer say, "It's time." And then I realized a bunch of people sent me messages and be like, by the way, Bruce Buffer is terribly litigious and he will probably steal your socks. So I was like, I don't want that at all.
No.
So I talked to Marsh and I said, why don't we just get people to record it? And he was like, good idea. The problem is people do too quiet. So one of the problems, you'll get too quiet. Yeah, it won't be too quiet. I figured for you, it will be fine.
Right.
And then, I'll probably ask a couple other people, not Eli, other people. So
everybody but Eli. Yeah, everybody. Yeah. Specifically call people that he's in the room with.
Yeah.
Like, that's how, like, for Eli, I think the best prank on Eli would be to get all of his friends in a room and then to ask all of those people one by one and skip Eli. And just break his heart.
So mean.
I love Eli. That's funny.
So mean.
That's fucking funny.
Tom, this week week was really a rough week for American diplomacy
not good
for a very long it's been a long time since it's been this bad.
Yeah. If you are living under a rock and you miss the public dressing down of Volodymyr Zelenskyy from Ukraine, who came over. So it was originally, I thought that the trip was going to be to sign an agreement to pledge a certain amount of rare earth minerals
for some help
in exchange for some security guarantees, right? There would be no reason for Zelenskyy to be like, I will give you these. And I actually listened to something interesting today about this. I will give you these supposed mineral rights in exchange for something of value. But the Trump administration was like, hey, you should sign it over. And we think Putin will probably stop. He seems all right. He'll probably quit. He'll probably cut it out. No security guarantees from the U.S., though. Something interesting that I listened to on one of my news podcasts this morning was that all these mineral rights are supposed. They're imaginary. They're perhaps mineral rights. They're not established. These aren't like established mines and established minerals. This is like, if there are any, they're ours kind of a thing, you know?
Sure.
And there's good reason to think that there are very valuable rare earth minerals, which would be necessary for the production of the chips and other bullshit.
It's like
in Ukraine.
It's like when I order a, Reuben. If there's a pickle, my wife gets it.
That's right.
100%. Like if there's a pickle on the plate.
That's the agreement.
I'll never eat it. It's never mine. It's never been mine.
Right.
My whole marriage. Yeah, I get it.
That's exactly it.
I get it.
So but why would you sign over all of this thing that, if it exists, would be of tremendous economic value?
Yeah.
Especially if you're a country which will be in absolute, if they rebuild, when they rebuild, hopefully, I don't even know, that's more of an if they rebuild as a sovereign nation, they're going to need all the money that they can get.
Whatever they can get, sure.
Why would you sign all that shit over if you're not even getting a security guarantee out of it?
Yeah, it doesn't make a lot of sense, does it? No. So you could see why he was immediately like, yeah, I'm not going to do that. And then they started to pressure him, which was a total setup. I mean, if you watch this, it's 100% a setup. Yeah. They get the guy there, then they get JD Vance and Trump, and they decide instead of putting it out there behind doors or whatever, and then you find out about it later or find out sort of what happened later on, they have all the cameras running the whole time.
Live.
Which is crazy, right? It's not something they normally do. And it was funny because as soon as this happened, Trump blows up at him, yells at him. JD Vance yells at him. Some random guy who's dating a reporter who's also dating Marjorie Taylor Greene is like, why don't you wear a suit? And Zelensky's comment to this is amazing. He's basically like, I'll wear a costume after the war is done.
Yeah, it's fucking
like,
great.
I'll wear maybe my suit will even be better than yours. It's just fucking amazing. But anyway, you get these clowns and they're all screaming at him. And Trump is the worst. Like, he's so bad at, anybody who thinks he's the art of the deal guy, you're a fucking idiot. I'm sorry, man. Watch that man speak to people, especially on the world stage. It's ridiculous. But here's the thing. Trump and Vance and them, they all scream and yell. And I pay attention to sort of right-wing news sites, right-wing talking points. I'm involved in a couple of Joe Rogan boards now, and a lot of them are, like, they lean really hard right wing. So I'll see these posts from people from those places to see sort of what are the people on the right saying about this, right? Because I know what the people on the left are all like, holy shit, fuck? Yeah. What just happened? I'm embarrassed. So many people across the country that I saw that were in sort of my sphere all talked about how embarrassed they were to be an American that day.
It's humiliating.
It's humiliating.
A humiliating moment. Yeah.
Most of those people were all like, this is what it's like to have a leader, et cetera, et cetera. But I saw one person who posted an article about Joe Biden raising his voice to Zelensky. And it was on a call. He had given Zelensky $1 billion in aid, and Zelensky said he needed some more help. And Joe was like, I already gave you $1 billion. But here's the difference between that call and what happened and they said he raised his voice. They said he raised his voice. The difference between that call and the one that happened in the White House is the only way we know that happened was because someone who is familiar with what happened told the press. Right. That's how we know. We know all the stuff that President Trump said because we watched it.
Yeah, happened in front of us.
It's all happening.
Right.
So there's a big difference between you have to find this out in the back room and it gets told to the press and it's not as big a story versus everybody in the world watched Trump try to dog walk Zelensky.
Yeah. And, a couple other things that I think are really worth noting from this moment is it really got testy. So that the narrative that the Trump administration has always put forward on the whole invasion of Ukraine has been that it never would have happened if Trump was in charge.
Sure, yeah.
He said it a million times. It never would have happened on my watch. Never would have happened on my watch. So at one point, Trump is trying to talk about this stuff, and Zelensky corrects Trump. And he says, actually, this all started in 2014.
Yeah.
When Crimea was annexed.
Yeah, they took
illegally
part of our fucking country.
by Russia, right?
Yeah.
Well, that problem with that is that then predates. That predates. So that if you're Trump, goes like against the narrative of none of this Russian aggression into Ukraine would have happened.
Oh, yeah.
Right? So, but Zelensky corrects him. And that's really a big part of, I think, when it goes off the rails. And then Trump is trying to throw out all these fucking Russian talking points. And Zelensky's like, none of that is accurate. None of that is fucking accurate.
Yeah.
Trump can't stand to be corrected. And then he goes into this fucking transactional mode, right? Where he keeps interrupting and saying, you have no cards. You don't have any cards. He keeps saying the same thing over and over again. And that's a big difference between what Biden was doing and what Trump is doing, right? Biden, I think, when he raises his voice and is like, well, we already gave you $1 million. He's not saying there's nothing in this for me. You have no leverage. $1 billion. $1 billion. But you know what I mean? The difference, like what Trump is saying is you have no leverage. So why would I help you?
Yeah.
Right. That's what you have no cards means is you have no leverage in this negotiation. Whereas Biden is like, we've already been very generous here. I can't just keep shitting money at this problem forever.
Yeah.
Those are two very different things.
Yeah.
Trump is like what's in it for me?
Yeah.
And I don't know, man, the sovereignty of Europe. That's what's in it for us as a people is the sovereignty of Europe.
Yeah. And to see him spouting Russian talking points, allowing Russian media inside. I don't know if you saw this.
No, what? Jesus, fuck.
Evidently, two Russian media people slipped past the goalie, Tom. We just didn't notice that there was two Russian media people in the room.
Sure, man.
Yeah.
Sure.
So, that happens. That happens. There's that comment by JD Vance, who's trying to, JD Vance is trying to inflame the situation. Why don't you say why don't you say thank you? Why don't you ever say thank you? Why don't you ever? And it's like, dude, if you paid attention to this before you got in office, you would know he said thank you multiple
like a million times.
There's a supercut of him saying it 88 times to the United States people. And so again, JD Vance doesn't know what he's talking about because he's just, all they are is a party of trolling. We saw it this week with the State of the Union or whatever.
Yeah.
You saw him and you saw how they were trying to antagonize the other side. You saw the way the speech was written very specifically to antagonize people. That's the only thing they can do. Yeah. That's what they got. That's it. That's like they open their toolbox and that's the only
tool
thing in there.
Yeah, right.
This is their troll hammer and they're going to use it.
If for these guys, it's a world of nails.
Yeah, that's it.
They live in a world of nails.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so, it's embarrassing beyond belief. And the idea that someone thought this, I can't imagine that somebody thought this, but I'm sure somebody did. Somebody pulled this ticket because they thought they were at least partial issue voter on Ukraine and thought this was the best course of action that Trump should be in there.
Yeah, man. Yeah, you're not wrong. There are people out there that would definitely have cited, they believe the Trump talking points that this never would have happened if Trump had been in charge. There are people who saw Joe Biden as weak, despite Joe Biden's incredibly unwavering support of Ukraine.
Yeah.
Right. So, but they see him as, somehow necessarily weak in this equation.
Yeah.
And then they believe Trump's nonsense of I'll stop day one, even before day one, he said, I will stop this war. I'll get this war stopped. And I think if you are desperate to stop violence that is being perpetrated illegally on people that you care about and that are part of your history, your heritage, your family, if somebody said, I can stop that better than the other guy, that makes sense to me. Right?
Sure.
I'm you shouldn't believe it because the man's an inveterate liar and he's never accomplished anything ever.
Yeah.
But I can understand why you would be sympathetic to that message, right? That makes all the sense to me in the world. What I'm really afraid of, and we talked about this before Trump was even elected, and I think we're watching it happen in, I almost would say slow motion, but it's been 15 minutes that he's been president, so there's nothing slow about this motion, is I think we are watching the United States pull out of NATO.
Yeah.
I think that's what's going to happen.
I don't think you're wrong. I think that's probably
and I think Europe in reacting to this the way that they have. So Europe's pledged $158 million or some huge number. I don't remember what it is. I think they're recognizing okay, we can't count on the Americans. That is an alliance that, even though it historically has existed for almost 100 years, is now effectively broken.
Yeah.
And that's incredibly upsetting.
Well, and you saw immediately that Europe was let's crank it all up, start making weapons again. We're going to start arming and defending ourselves again. You're seeing, the effects of Trump's tariffs are destructive. You're seeing it's just all this stuff is bad. It's essentially breaking most of the United States in such a fast order. It's hard not to think that he's not somebody who is doing this purposefully for another power.
Yeah,
it's hard not to think that.
It feels look, whether he's a Russian plant or not.
Or he's just really stupid and able to be manipulated.
Yeah, it's well, all right, maybe he's a Russian plant that's too stupid to know he's a Russian plant, but if in practice you're that thing, then you're that thing, man.
You can't look at all the things he's done so far and not be and not at least have a graph that shows you if Russia benefited, right? You can go through and be you know what? I think Russia's benefited from a lot of the stuff you've done so far. So even if you're not on their side, and there's no way to prove that or whatever, you're at least a useful idiot.
Yeah, you're if you don't think you're a pro-Russian stooge, I can't tell the difference.
Yeah. There's functionally no difference to the American people whether or not you're a stooge or you're an actual malicious force.
Yeah,
there's no functional difference.
Right.